And good morning, everybody. This is your fearless teacher, the freelance teacher, Doug Marola, talking with you again. And I just want to talk to you about a few things that have come up recently, teach you about how the world works, things that we've been doing that I've been doing for the past 25 years. I've been working with you guys probably for the last 5 or 6. But a couple of things are relevant, and a couple of things in the current day world are worth taking a look at so that you can operate efficiently, so that you can operate with victories, so that not every day is a day of fear and despair. And it's one of those baselines that is mandatory that you have, that despair and fear are used by your enemies to stop you from being productive, basically. Why do you think you're told that the sea level is rising and the earth is turning into a fireball? Do you honestly think that the power elite are worried that the sea levels are rising and the earth is turning into a fireball and we need to keep you safe? You, in my opinion, anybody who really thinks that people in state and federal levels of government are getting together and just saying we need to do something good. Regular people are going to get hurt here. No, they're not worried about that. Why do you think they bought condos on the Miami beach? Because the sea level is going to rise and ruin their condo? Come on. Anyway, I know you guys get me distracted with this kind of stuff. You do it on purpose. But I was talking with my brother, and he was telling me that downtown Richmond is a hellhole. It's a mess. The state has removed the publicly owned statues. They have a main road in Richmond, Virginia. Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy because, Americans don't know this because they're historically illiterate. So Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, and there's Monument Avenue, and there's Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and a bunch of people from the Confederacy. And that may be distasteful to some people. It's possible. They've been there, those statues have been there for probably 100 years, I'm guessing. And so they've been defaced, and they were, and it was just chaos. Paint, defaced, stuff written all over them. One of the statues even has "Hands up, don't shoot," which is what Michael Brown never said in Ferguson, just to show you how stupid Americans are and how easily led people are. The "hands up, don't shoot" myth is just that. It's a myth. It never happened. Yet people, that's to them it did happen, and they're going to deface monuments, and the government stands down and lets it happen, and they took the statues off so that they wouldn't get further defaced, and so that they could of course bow down to the mob. And downtown Richmond, it's over. Forget it. Downtown Richmond, I'd be shocked if downtown Richmond doesn't become Detroit. So, or Camden, or any of these other areas, or the Bluff in Atlanta. So I was talking with my brother about it, and people who don't agree with that mindset, people who don't agree with the zeitgeist of America is a fundamentally racist country and needs to be remade, and you will bend the knee before basically whatever the flavor of the month movement is. Right now it's BLM. It'll be something else in 6 months. But you are to bend the knee. You are to bow down, and you are to do as you're told and give up resources. For now, it's money, taxes, and stuff like that. It's like the carbon tax with global warming. What's going to fix global warming according to the top of the pyramid? Money, of course. It's just commerce. All of it is commerce. The United States Corporation and the other corporations within the United States are simply making money. That's all they're doing. And some people are ignorant. And I don't mean ignorant as a pejorative, as a bad word. I mean ignorant as they don't know this. So they're thinking over here, oh, government is there to help us. Whereas the United States corporation really is just there to make money, and it's figuring out cool and wacky ways to siphon agents within the corporation, that's us, to give them their money. But I digress. That's another topic. So the the conversation was how conservatives, I'm just going to use these terms loosely, but conservative traditional people only complain. Right? So my brother was saying how horrible this is, and he's right. And I said, what people need to do in some way is fight back, meaning that Conservative Inc., Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, all of these people, all they do is complain. The apex predator complainer but do nothing is the whole National Review Weekly Standard crowd. They're neoconservative people who just complain. Their grift, their way to take money is to pretend to be conservative. And so, the old line before you were born was that the people at National Review are standing in front of Washington, D.C. yelling, "Stop, stop." Well, that's all they did. They yelled stop for 70 years, while the United States has become so bad and so bent that it's going to break up probably by 2030. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the comments under this in 2030, if there's still a YouTube and the whole thing, are, look at you, you said 2030, 2033, you were wrong. The United States still going strong and united. Hey, that's great. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but that's what I see happening. So they've been yelling, right? So the conservative establishment, the Conservative Inc., has been complaining and yelling stop and done nothing and never fought back. How many well-written George Will columns have I read that are eloquent? The best ever speech against Medicare and Medicaid is a George Will hour-long lecture on the topic. It's the best I've ever seen. It did nothing. It didn't move the needle. It hasn't lowered the size of the budget. It hasn't shrunk government in any way. And another thing that you don't know, because you're taught to be ignorant, is that Medicare, Medicaid is the biggest budget item in the federal budget. Bigger than Social Security, bigger than education, bigger than the military. Medicare is going to bankrupt the United States. So, the conversation I was having was talking about kind of what I had spoken of in the previous video. It's important to fight back in some way. The Heritage Foundation, Conservative Inc., the National Rifle Association, their grift is to be conservative, pro-freedom, all this kind of stuff. Take your money and complain. Regular people now are starting to very slowly fight back. And it might mean financial support of a cause. It might mean forming groups. And what I mentioned to my brother was that sometimes people protest very quietly. So what you have is, like, the government is obviously, the globalists, I should say, who control much of the government, are basically testing the waters. If we say there's a flu, you have to wear a mask, or you get arrested, or you get fined, or whatever. No mask, no service. In what country called the United States is that a free country? Oh, yeah, but it stops the spread of it. It does? The next time someone says to you, wearing a mask stops the spread of the flu, I want you to ask them to prove it. Give them your contact information and say, prove it. Show me. Show me something medical. I'll even take establishment medical opinion that it stops or seriously slows. Not could, not might, not we think, not the newspaper article says, not my TV says, or someone on social media posted. Even a mainstream, which is corrupt to the core, mainstream medical just as corrupt as mainstream corp, right, mainstream entertainment, right? They're all completely twisted. Mainstream medical says wearing a mask does, prove it. That's all. Even things like that. You don't have to fight. I detest the whole mask thing. Because it's now not obviously not about medical stuff or science or math or anything like that. The press is telling you, and they're above them is government, and above them is globalist. Above them are Prometheans, followers of the light, they're all saying we want to, this reasonably free Western nominally Christian country needs to be destroyed. And so it's just a constant push. They fight. I don't think you understand that you or we need to fight back in whatever way you can. So the press is saying mask, 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 and they're just doing it because they're sycophantic, amoral weirdos who are doing what they're told by big money NGOs and stuff like that. But there are ways to push back, and one of the things you can tell in trying to figure out your path and trying to figure out the way to do this is looking at what, like the press for one thing, is going crazy against stuff that doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't go crazy against people who are regular folks who say the wrong thing. That's been the case. That if I go out on YouTube or these other channels and I say stuff about the COVIDs that doesn't fit the narrative, I'm gonna, it's my video gonna be demonetized, maybe scrubbed. I don't even know. But you had these frontline doctors. They immediately got axed off of YouTube and Facebook and everywhere. Just removed, censored, done. These are physicians, practicing, licensed, board-certified doctors. I want you to think about that. The other thing is, what stories are not around anymore? And Clay Travis at Outkick, and that's the sports version of Fighting Back. In case you want to know what Fighting Back looks like, it could be Outkick.com with Jason Whitlock and Clay Travis. It could be that. Do that on a small scale. 3 of your friends get together, start a YouTube and a BitChute channel, DLive, whatever it is you need to do in case you get scrubbed off of YouTube, and get your information out there. But I digress. So the Clay Travis brought this up about the press, and he's right. Where stories that have disappeared, what it means is it doesn't fit the narrative, and they're no longer that story doesn't work anymore. Case in point, the COVID's mask fiasco that this has become. Florida just tested way more tests than they've ever tested in their history of the COVIDs. So Florida still has less than 1/5 of the deaths in New York State. So what you were hearing 2 and 3 weeks ago is that Florida is an agent of death. Florida is going to be the second wave. It's going to be a bloodbath. And the percentage of deaths to positive test cases is like the number of deaths is plummeted, even though they've tested more and more and more. So Florida looks like the corona COVID's numbers are so low. Same thing with Texas. Texas was, epicenter of new wave, second wave, OMG, mask. You don't hear about Texas anymore because that doesn't fit the narrative. So the story is gone. Arizona, same thing. So it's all of these things where you're being how do I put this? You're being pushed into despair. because anyone can look at the numbers of COVIDs, the novel coronavirus. What will go down, in my opinion, as one of the biggest shit shows in the United States history. And so you can look and find these things, and you can say, hey, this is terrible. Look at what they're doing. They're eroding freedoms. They're eroding the Bill of Rights. They're eroding our sovereign nature as souls in the world. They're going after people's ability to earn a living. They've completely destroyed the illegal immigrant community here in New York because of the closing of the restaurants. So just in case you think that they care about the people they purport to care, you're sadly mistaken. Last point, the John Lewis funeral. Notice how crowded it was? I complained about it. You know, people are worried about walking around here in my very quiet neighborhood with no mask. Those are the same people that will cry and bow down and scrape before the people giving speeches at John Lewis' funeral. You see how crowded it was in there? I have students that weren't able to bury relatives properly because they weren't allowed to have a funeral. Even now, you can't have a funeral like that, but they can. And here's what they want. Let me end with this. They want you to send money to the Heritage Foundation. They want you to complain that it's not right. They want you to listen to Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and these guys, and Glenn Beck, who I have a particular distaste for. They want you to listen and hear that and just be despairing and wretched and miserable at how there's a double standard. If you see it that way, they've won. If you see it as a way to, how can I fight back? How can I organize a small group? I mean, people who are seen as toxic by the mainstream. Vox Day, I've mentioned them before, Vox Day, Owen Benjamin. There are others. Those are the first two who come to mind. Lauren Southern. These are people who, Cynthia McKinney, right? Look up Cynthia McKinney. One of the few people I see as heroic. Fought back. In whatever way you can. Cynthia McKinney ran for Congress and won to fight back. They got her in the end. But she fought back. Good for her. So, the trap is to sit and complain and, hey, look at the double standard. You're going to do that forever. You can do that forever. Actionable stuff. If New York City, let's say, because I live in New York City, I'm in the Bronx. If New York City decides to do another hardcore lockdown, it will destroy businesses. My wife and I are going to get all of the other Hispanic businesses in our neighborhood together in some way. Whoever will join. If no one will join the group, then it'll be just us. And we're going to complain to the authorities. We're going to put our word out there and do whatever legal action we can. Who thought bringing legal action against Patreon, a megalith Silicon Valley company, would have any effect? Well, it has. So we're not going to do nothing. We complained about the lockdowns. Our business got shut down. Our neighboring business, right? There's a bunch of Spanish restaurants that are wonderful in our neighborhood. They got shut down. They're still struggling. My barber's about to go under. Put him in the mix too. Hey, look, let's organize. We're going to do that. If they do it again, I think they will. So do what you can. Fight back in the way that you can. I would recommend In Power, looking at Cal Washington and what they've done. Now, that stuff is really deep and takes a lot of time. I will learn what I can about it. And, of course, I'll share that information with you as I go forward, because my job is to teach you about these things, which I will. So let me end with that. It's been about 20 minutes. That's about enough for now. Don't forget the main messages. Don't despair. And as Owen says, fear is the virus.